Harry. This one beeth Tomb of a Dracula, issue 50, 5-0, Hawaii 5-0. It's not going to Hawaii. Silver Surfman though. We have got a Dracula fighting Silver Surfman. The most shocking story of them all. Honestly, not that shocking. I never gasped once. This is one of the more infamous Tomb of a Draculas, entirely because of the premise. Silver Surfman, one of the most powerful Marvel characters. He's gone to fight this Dracula. Makes sense though, because he was completely powerless against a woman with a gun in that one Mars Girl story I reviewed a few weeks ago. Linking it to that, this issue was reprinted in 1994 with a new cover by Ron Lee, that is Stanley Lee's little brother. And I might track that down for the cover. It'll go nicely in my long box with all my Silver Surfmans. This is by Mark Wolfenstein and Jean Coleman, the creative team that defined this long-running series. We open with a moody, atmospheric sequence showing us our title Dracula stalking a woman in the dark to suck off her neck. We have subplots up the wazoo. This is apparently one of the hallmarks of Tomb of a Dracula. This was doing the Christopher Clairvoyant style kudzu plots long before Christopher Clairvoyant was doing the Christopher Clairvoyant style kudzu plots. One of them involves Wesley Snipes, and we will actually come back to this if I ever review the other issue I have, issue 53, because it is all about this subplot. Some witches or warlocks or something, they use magics to summon Silver Surfman. They want to use him as a weapon to slay this Dracula. And it is a very basic bitch plot. But yeah, Silver Surfman is bound by magics and under some mental control. And that is also our excuse for why Silver Surfman doesn't murder this dramatically lesser opponent. Nice Jean Coleman art here. Another of our plot lines is that this Dracula is about to have a baby. I think now is the operative time to talk about him and Marvel's Dracula comics. Tomb of a Dracula began in 1972 with Tomb of a Dracula #1. The character was adapted from Bram Stoker, but it was Roger Thomas who got into the idea of doing a comic book starring Dracula. The series was Mark Wolfenstein and John Coleman mostly, and it ran for 70 issues, and people speak highly of it. Most famous for introducing Wesley Snipes in issue 10, but there are a few other notable things along the way, with Mark Wolfenstein introducing other characters or concepts that, while not anywhere near as lasting as Wesley Snipes, they do get some more play and have some significance, at least to me, someone who reads the Andy books. They did actually do a Dracula Andy book in 2010 or 2011. Maybe I'll look at that one day. There was also Dracula Lives, which was a black and white magazine concurrent with Tomb of a Dracula, and some of that is canon. And look, even Christopher Lee read these here funny books. As for Tomb of a Dracula, I tried to read it once before. I downloaded all 70 issues, and I got to about issue 13 or 14, and there was a crossover with Werewolf at 8, and I stopped and got annoyed that I was missing part of a story. We will come back to other Dracula comics, but for now we are at the start of our battle. We kick off with this really rubbish symbolism. Silver Surfman phases through a framed picture of Jesus Christ. Do you get it? Do you get what it is saying? Hey you, do you understand the message that this is trying to convey? For all its problems and plotting, I'll give Mark Wolfenstein this. Even with a handicapped Silver Surfman, there are parts of this fight that don't frustrate me. Throughout, we do have Silver Surfman thinking that he isn't really acting like himself, or that he doesn't seem to be in control, and that stuff bothers me a lot. But I think from the angle of us seeing Dracula fight Silver Surfman, I think that side of the match is neat. We don't get to see Silver Surfman fight Dracula. We get to see Dracula fight Silver Surfman, if that makes sense. My favourite bit is upcoming, where Silver Surfman is swarmed by vermin. Classic Dracula power, rats. I like this. Silver Surfman being felled by one hit to the back of the head, I like less. This is a neat way to link it to my next talking point though. Most of Dracula's other crossovers made a bit more sense. We had the Werewolf at 8-1, that makes sense. Tonally, it makes sense. There was one with Frankenstein's monster. I've read that one. That was set in the past. They fight. There was surely some Spider-Man team-up shit. That'll be as silly as it got. We had a crossover with Doctor Strange just before this Silver Surfman appearance. Issue 44, I think it was. After this, we get Satan's Son for an issue. And I think earlier we had Brother Voodoo for another. Two characters who I would say are appropriate and are not as gratuitous or out of place as Silver Surfman. Weirdly, never had a Ghost Driver crossover. That could have worked. Swamp Thing too. That would have worked. Jared Leto. That's a weird one not to do. They did have Wesley Snipes meet him. Oh, another appearance. We have just came out of Miss Marble's week, but the Dracula has a random cameo in Miss Marble's 14. He is stalking Karen Daggers. After Tomb of a Dracula ended, he started making guest appearances all over the shop. He was in those terrible Uncanny Excellent Men issues where he wants to marry Storms. He is in a pair of Thor comics, which I am intrigued by. Possibly might get them eventually. The big ones are, he is in my favourite issue of Defenders 95. Brilliant issue. And he is also in another big Doctor Strange story arc by Royce Sternum, which also has one of my favourite issues, issue 60, another spectacular issue. It is the only one I have read of that story, but it's a banger. More recently, there was the Captain Britain and MI13 story, which had one of the most annoying arse-pulls I have ever read. And not long after that, Marvel redesigned them and tried to push them as their own original character, independent from Bram Stoker. They even reprinted some Tomb of a Draculas with him coloured blue to gaslight people into thinking that he was always a legally distinct character. I think they gave up on that because there was a Captain America comic where he was fighting him a few years back. I remember I read it. There was Armageddon versus Dracula in 2006. Remember that? Armageddon versus Dracula. My favourite bit of this issue is the guest appearances from Spider-Man and Human Fly. Hello, Human Fly here. I'm half joking, but also I fucking love Human Fly. One of my favourite Spider-Man bad guys, and this is an important moment in Human Fly history, because Human Fly, he lives on a diet of garbage. He eats out of bins. But here we see Spider-Man, nice guy that he is, he gives Human Fly a Twinkie. Even though Human Fly is Spider-Man's enemy, Spider-Man still shares his hostess products with him. And that is why Spider-Man is one of the best superheroes around. Now, Human Fly first appeared in... No, I'm kidding. So, the Dracula, his bride convinces Silver Surfman to leave. That's the ending. Very abrupt DC-style climax. The story says, that's all I've got for today, go away now. I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed it. It wasn't perfect. I'm not even sure if I'd say it was good, but I enjoyed reading it. If demand is high enough, if you all ask or request in the comments, I will look at the other issue I got, the Satan's Son guest appearance one. I will look at that sooner rather than later if you ask for it. I do need to try and throw it out to you. Stuff like Miss Marble's week is beyond stupid if none of you are interested in Miss Marbles. I do reckon this issue satisfies someone reading it on the basis of the ludicrous pairing of characters. That's a 7 thumbs fresh.